Hello and welcome back to live coverage of the Apex Gaming Magic Weekend. I'm Tandy, joined by Bomat. So hi, Bomat.
Hi, Bo Matt.
We got a $5,000 Modern Open coming to its Twilight rounds. We are entering round 7, so you know what that means. A lot of winning ends. We have 8 rounds today with 6 in the books, and this one is going to be a spicy one.
Yeah. We've got Mason, friend of the stream, Mason Esports Clark, up against Clinton Endicott. Both at X and 1, 5 and 1, I believe. And that's going to be Mason playing Rakdos Evoke against Clinton on Temur Rhinos.
Yeah, and we've seen this matchup actually earlier. This was what Mason beat on camera about 2 rounds ago, I believe.
Right.
And it looked pretty convincing from his side of things. I think Seasoned Pyromancer gives him a bit of longevity. The early double grief is like pretty gross sometimes for the Team of Rhinos
Right.
decks to fight through. Plus, he has some Chalice of Voids in the sideboard, so it should be a tough one. Now, the players are ready and down in the match. So let's go ahead and head on down there and let them start playing so they're not waiting on us, and we can do all our filler talk while we're doing that. These players are playing for their fair share of $5,000 with $1,500 up top to the winner. Whoever wins this match likely able to draw into the top 8. And we'll see who's on the play.
Did see 7 cards for Clinton on the play.
All right, turn 1, Misty Rainforest, no play. Pretty common for this Rhinos deck. You have to not play, straight up 1-drops and 2-drops. You have to play the split cards or not very many. And here's turn 1 Ragavan from Mason Clark. Clinton, end of turn, going to fetch. See if he gets a untapped Steam Vents to shock or a Ketra Triumph goes for the Triumph.
And we're going to see if Clinton has one of the couple of answers that Temur can have to a turn 1 Ragavan in Fire, Ice, or Dead Gone, or if this Ragavan is going to end up connecting.
Yeah, I don't think it's very likely to connect with Fire Ice, Dead Gone, Fury. These are all ways, even like Brazen Bar sometimes, these are all ways that they have to interact with it. With the 4 Mystical Dispute version, Mystical Dispute is kind of taking the spot of some of these other cards, but it looks like Clint's got a nice one. Dismember? I haven't seen Team Rhinos play Dismember before. That's awesome. Has Fury at the ready as well. Here comes Ragavan. Dismember time. Mason, do you want to scam it? Decides not to. You're dead.
In the bin. What's the follow-up?
Hopefully for Mason, it's either Double Grief or Dauthi Voidwalker. Both are quite strong. Dauthi Voidwalker essentially just becoming not a straight-up counterspell for a Crashing Footfalls, but a mirror of Crashing Footfalls is still quite strong.
And once those Rhinos are in play, it can sometimes be even easier for Rakdos to deal with them than Temur if Mason's able to put together a Fury. But we do see Voidwalker into a single Grief here. Mason really prioritizing the Void counter.
Yeah, and this is going to essentially take a card from Clinton's hand and exile it with the Dauthi Voidwalker so it can be cast next turn. Mason here looking at a hand of Force Negation, Fury, Murktide Regent, Otawara, and Mystical Dispute. What do you take here and why?
I'm really thinking it's going to be the Fury. Being able to both get rid of the only removal Clinton has for this Dauthi Voidwalker, as well as just then keep that Fury under the Voidwalker to be able to deal with at least 1 Rhino in the future and get yourself a threat is kind of exactly what Mason's looking for.
Important to note that Violent Outburst off the top is not castable. The mana from Clinton Endicott, he drew 2 straight blue sources, and it requires both a red and a green. So Mason only has a sweat. Shardless Agent off the top.
Right.
Triumph
can only do so much, right?
Right. It's no Cascade Bluffs. All right, so Fury in exile, kind of under the Voidwalker, can be cast whenever. And we're going to go back Endicott's way. Has Murktide, Mystical Dispute, Force Negation, and an Otawara. See what the draw is.
This is actually another spot where Mason could get paid off for having these Pyromancers instead of the Fable. Pyromancer not vulnerable to Force Negation.
Yeah, that's true, certainly. Now, Endicott here in the tank can just hold up 3rd mana source, holding Mystical Dispute or Force Negation at will. If Mason wants to, he can dash Ragavan. He can also cast Fury off of Voidwalker, but that leaves him vulnerable to a counterspell unless he has a 3rd land. We're going to attack. Endicott really wants to draw something like Dead Gone to clear this so that the Fury won't be so threatening later on.
And Mason looks like we'll just pass the turn here.
Interesting. I would have at least cast Ragavan, but maybe he's holding it so he can pitch the Fury.
That's true. Can you tell what the third card in hand
I
is there for
can. I was actually about to ask you.
Mason?
All right. It might be another Fury. This like a weird art and foil or something.
Yeah, you know how
Anyway,
they are.
Fury Ragavan X. Here's Dot the Voidwalker on screen. The powerful 2-drop from Modern Horizons 2. Black black for a 3/2 Shadow. If a card will be put into an opponent's graveyard from anywhere, exile it instead with a void counter on it. And you can tap and sack Dothy Voidwalker on the next turn and cast any of the cards or play any of the lands that are exiled with it. And basically, you know, you get to steal your opponent's Ulamog and
Yeah.
then cast it for free.
Famous Pro Tour winning Rakdos Ulamog deck in the hands of Jake Beardsley.
Yeah, we got to watch that nice little exchange against Christian Calcano in the top 8 of Pro Tour Lord of the Rings. It was quite nice.
One of the best Magic moments on camera.
All right, here's a Ragavan. See what Clinton wants to do with it. Mystical Dispute doesn't do anything. It resolves.
Ragavan's in. That is a lot of turns with no spells on the stack for Clinton.
Well, here's a Fury. Honestly, I think we drew Violent Outburst, but I think we're going to cast that instead of pitching it to Fury, which I like. Here's an attack. We're going to Violent Outburst. I'm going to flip over until we hit Crashing Footfalls, and then those are going to threaten to block the Ragavan. We are going to exile the Crashing Footfalls and the Violent Outburst so that Mason can play either.
And I don't know if we have a fifth land here for Mason. This is a great spot to be casting a Fury, if that's an option available to him. Really keep the clock on alongside this Voidwalker.
All right, Ragavan down. You know, I think you can tell the difference between a good player and a great player, because I think a great player there double blocks the Ragavan.
Absolutely.
A single block leaves you somewhat vulnerable to something like Fatal Push, you know? The Ragavan sticks around for an extra turn, and a double block just ensures that it's gone almost 100% of the time.
Right. Mason looks like has some decisions to make. Is evoking a Fury to deal with at least one of these Rhinos.
All right, one of the Rhinos are down. Let's see if he has anything to go with it. Doesn't have one of those undying effects, so just going to trade 2 for half.
Looks like Mason was extremely worried here about if you take 8 from these Rhinos, then the Murktide threatens to put another 8 damage in the air. Ooh.
All right, going to go for Undying Malice on the Dothy Voidwalker, and it survives the Fury. And now Mason Clark, in a racing scenario, needs to draw 1 point of damage to close the game. Next turn can be attacked only for 10, but if Clinton Endicott has Fire Ice or something similar, it could threaten lethal. We'll see if Mason wants to do anything from exile or attack for 4. We're going to cast something. What are we casting?
So we saved this. This is Chekhov's Fury. We put it under the Void counter on turn 2. It's going to come back, put another Fury with another Void counter on it into exile.
All right. So, Voidwalker, cast Fury. Fury going to kill Fury. Fury going to get exiled under the other Voidwalker. And then we're going to see if Mason can win the game before Clinton catches up. I kind of liked going for the lethal over 2 turns personally, but, man.
Well, one very important factor here. Almost this entire game, all of Clinton's cards have been going to exile. That means this Murktide Regent has a really hard time even being cast. So Mason is not under that much pressure. We see here, got to tap out, take your whole turn to play a 4/4 Murktide. A measly 4/4 Murktide.
Well, interesting attack here because we can just go Voidwalker Fury attack, and that's going to be game over. And Clinton lost to the on board. Don't love it, but
Mason set up the dominoes, and they fell just so.
Yeah, it feels like Clinton was in a bad spot there. Perhaps a slight misplay, but ultimately Mason Clark very happy with the outcome, and he's up a game. We are playing for top 8 here at the Apex Gaming $5,000 Modern Open. This is also an invitational qualifier and destination RCQ. The winner will be headed to Atlanta later this year for the regional championship. The finalists, both finalists will be qualified for the Apex Gaming Invitational later this year in November. And they're going to be trying to win their fair share of. What do we land on for the Invitational? Was it 20K? $20,000 prize purse up for grabs at the Apex Invitational later this year. We got a lot more events this year to qualify for it, including Big Magic Weekends here at the Apex Gaming Home Store on September 9th. We also have another event on October 28th, and then the Invitational in November. Now, I will say this. The special guests that we have this weekend include Mason Clark on your right. You see him. We also include the illustrious Corey Baumeister. But on 9/9, we're going to have the Scry Babies!
Ooh.
I think the Command Zone needs a little more love. Apex is not just a competitive store. We like to have fun. We do mystery drafts. We do, two-headed giant. We have a popper event. We have a legacy event. And we also have a Command Zone.
Right.
And we are super excited to announce that the Scry Babies, Tori Vast and Louis Stardust, are both going to be here, along with Comedian, who also a Commander personality.
Right.
And they're going to be in the Command Zone all weekend. And that's 9/8, 9/9, and 9/10 coming up next month. So make sure to come on out to Caldwell, Ohio. You can meet some of your favorite Commander personalities and maybe get in a game with them in the Command Zone. That's the whole point, right?
Yeah. Sounds
That's
like
got
a
to
great
be
time.
sweet, right? Maybe we'll have a separate queue. It's the three of them, and then just like one at a time come in.
Yeah.
Get clowned by Ian
get
playing,
up.
playing Thassa's Oracle over and over again until your eyes bleed.
I don't know. That might not make it into the Rule Zero conversation. I don't know how many people want to sign up for Thassa's Oracle.
Well, if you want to play with the Scribe Babies, Ian's gonna be there whipping you. All right. Well, as these players shuffle up here for game number 2, we kind of know what's going on with Mason's sideboard. But let's talk about Clinton Endicott's sideboard. If you got it up for me, and tell me what you think he's going to be doing.
Yeah, so we have a couple interesting cards here, a little different from the last Rhinos sideboard we looked at. First, we have the more normal cards: 3 Endurance, 3 Force of Vigor, 1 Fury, 2 Beseju Who Endures, 2 Blood Moon, and then 2 copies of Inevitable Betrayal and 2 Leyline of Punishment for Clinton.
Leyline of Punishment's not Combustion. Let's see. What's Punishment do? It's like players can't gain life, and then I'm guessing like double damage. I'm guessing double damage and players can't gain life, but I have no idea.
That sounds like a lot. Can we get a Leyline of Punishment pulled up?
Leyline of Punishment. That's the one, huh?
I imagine it's just maybe damage can't be prevented. Yes, here we go. Players can't gain life and damage can't be prevented. So unlikely to make it into the main deck in this matchup, but certainly an interesting inclusion for Clinton here.
Yeah, ley lines are always pretty cool, just in general. I'm a big ley line gamer.
Yeah.
Back during the Legacy days, you needed those turn 0 effects with like Leyline of the Void in order to deal with Dredge.
Right.
And now, though, there's just like 20 different ley lines, and they're all pretty sweet, and they all have cool abilities. And the green one, I won't say that I got the green ley line band in Pioneer.
You know what? I'll give you credit. You kind of did.
Really?
Yes.
Yay!
I remember
like it when people give me credit.
I remember being at F&M that first week of Pioneer, tuning into your stream and watching you lose in the finals to that Nexus deck, and I went, you know what? I'll play Nexus.
Yeah.
But then you got that Leyline of Abundance band. There it is.
It was so that was actually a fun little ban cycle. We had Leyline of Abundance and Oath of Nissa both get banned in that short period of time.
Right.
And then time goes by, and then they ban Once Upon a Time.
Yep.
Oko wasn't part of the deck, but that was like the whole ban cycle or whatever. Teferi Time Raveler got banned in there somewhere. Yeah, and then they eventually unbanned Oath of Nissa, and I think that's about it. I don't think they took anything else away from it.
Yeah, and then here we are today.
Yep.
Still seeing events get crushed by Mono Green, and I don't want it to stop. I'm happy with that.
Old Bomat's a Mono Green gamer.
That's me.
We had a fun double RCQ weekend in Roanoke about a month ago, and our friend Zach, he won the first RCQ up at Star City Games, and then old Bomat won over at Blade Gaming.
That's right. My cards, 2 invites, 1 weekend.
Yeah.
Pretty good for the Llanowar Elves. All right. Looks like Clinton has taken a mulligan, and I don't believe Mason has.
All right. Well.
Oh, nope. 2 mulligans.
6v6.
6v6.
All right, here we go. Clinton Endicott down a game. Going to be on the play here for game number 1. That means Gemstone Mine's a bit worse, but being on the play is pretty solid. Clinton leads with Wooded Foothills and a passing of the turn.
Thinking about it,
Sorry,
looks like probably a suspend on turn 1.
That's good.
Best time to do it.
One thing I tell people all the time when you're playing Rhinos, especially in a matchup against like Rakdos Evoke or, like the Jund decks or any sort of like grindy interactive deck, just suspend it. You know,
Yeah.
don't hold it for force of vigor. Don't like get mad that you drew it.
Uh-huh.
Just suspend it, and then when it comes off, it'll come off, and then it's two more 4/4s, and
Yeah.
you know, the deck almost always wins with the second or the third crashing footfalls. It
Right.
very
Right.
rarely wins with the first crashing footfalls. It's just another
And
one.
just a little old Ragavan here for Mason on turn 1.
All right, see if we can handle it. It looks like we have another dismember. You know, when I get home, I'm just gonna queue up dismembers in my my Temur Rhinos deck. I want to see how it feels because they look great.
Right.
Ooh, another Undying Evil here. This is going to protect the Ragavan, and we're going to Endurance in response, and we're going to exile it when it's in the graveyard.
So Clinton actually getting a little bit punished here. Waited until Mason's attack step to dismember this Ragavan, and ended up having to trade an Endurance and a second Endurance just to keep it off the battlefield.
Yep, here is a discard spell, and that's going to take the force from him. I believe it's a Thoughtseize, but again,
It is a Thoughtseize, yeah.
you know, there's no version of that card that exists that I can read.
Right. And it looks like this is going to be taking Clinton's last card. So really relying on this Crashing Footfalls, given we don't even have a third land at the moment.
All right, but both players' life totals here are in some jeopardy thanks to some fetches, shocks, dismembers, and such. Mason
Right.
Clark all the way down to 13 after the Thoughtseize. Endicott ticks the Rhinos down to 2, draws for turn, needs a third land first, finds it. That's step 1.
Now our draws are live.
All right, Mason Clark, do you have the third mana source to start playing the big baddies? Do you have a Stealthy Voidwalker? What you got? Here it is. The Voidwalker returns. That's a cool one. I haven't seen that version. It's super dark on the background.
Yeah, it might be a foil old border version.
Ah, nice. Okay, Stealthy Voidwalker comes down. A 4th land for Endicott, no cards in hand. Dash Ragavan. Stealthy Voidwalker and Ragavan crash. 5 damage coming through. Treasure. Valinor versus the Find. Not enough mana to cast it. That would have been a good draw for Endicott, though, and
Yeah.
now it's not.
Ragavan's so punishing just in the way it lets you look at the top card of your deck. What would I have drawn? And then it's a psychological feel bad.
We call that deck damage.
Yeah.
Got deck damage. All right, here's the Crashing Footfalls. We're going to make 2 Rhinos, and that one is going to get exiled with a Void counter. The Violent Outburst was exiled from Ragavan, but not with a Void counter.
Right.
Slight difference, but
Making our zones clear.
makes all the difference, honestly.
Yeah.
All right. Endicott draws, 1 card in hand. Rhino's very good at this type of thing. Dead Gone on the Voidwalker.
Ooh,
Takes it out.
perfect.
Great draw. Pass
Yeah.
the turn.
Mason was really looking to cast the Footfalls here and then answer Clinton's Rhinos. But as it stands, Mason is possibly going to be left without a threat unless that's a second Voidwalker in hand.
I think it's a second Voidwalker. I also think he has a Fury to pitch. So my guess is Voidwalker plus Fury this turn. I don't think you can really wait on one of those Undying effects. I think he already used the one he had.
Right.
And doing it this way means that he'll just be able to play the Crashing Footfalls off the Voidwalker next turn, assuming he's not dead and assuming the Dothi Voidwalker gets to untap. So Endicott needs to not draw one of those removal spells.
Right.
Here we're going to take down one of the Rhinos, and we're left with a 4/4 versus Voidwalker, Endicott at 9, Mason Clark at 13 life, and we're going back Endicott's way.
It's a pretty tight clock. But this Voidwalker is threatening a whole lot more than just 3 damage a turn.
Yes, 2 4/4s. All right, we drew one of those lands that cycle. That's a Fiery Islet. We're going to draw. And passing the turn back, Voidwalker threatening to make Crashing Footfall here. Mason Esports Clark draws for turn. Let's see what he wants to do. 6/2 and handsome.
And, this is really cool. There are, the Rakdos deck is very good at playing different types of games, and it even has different types of games in this particular matchup post board. You have some games where you have a Chalice in play and your opponent is just completely locked out. But if your opponent has a Chalice in play, you never get to cast their Footfalls either. And then you get these super fun games where everyone gets to share in the love, and you get to put a power in play just like them.
All right, Spyro comes down. We're going to draw 2 cards, discarding a discard spell and a Feign Death, I believe. It's going to make 2 tokens. And now the Tides of Turn, and Endicott is on the back foot just with 1 Rhino in play. Let's see what the draw is. I see a Scalding Tarn and a Wooded Foothills. This is disaster. This is Not quite lethal. Let's see if Mason has something in hand to finish it off. We're going to swing in with most, all. Okay, all. So we have to trade Rhinos or it's lethal. No way to block the Spyro. So we're going to take 8. Down to 1 life is Clint Endicott. Fetch lands are dead. It's going to be heavy lifting to get back out of it. And here's Dauthi Voidwalker, threatening lethal with Shadow. Big turn. Clint Endicott.
Very few draws.
Murktide Regent not going to do it. And Mason Esports Clark going to cash his ticket to the top 8 here at the Apex Gaming Invitational Qualifier and $5,000 Modern Open. Congrats to him. He'll be able to draw next round almost 100%. And it's going to be a nice little payday. Top 8 minimum is $250, but all the way up top we have $1,500 on the line, and he's going to be playing for it. And hopefully he's going to be playing for it alongside Corey Baumeister, who's also in a winning end. So congrats to Mason Esports Clark.